There we go, we can get started. So thank you everybody for joining us today. I'm here with Cathie from the Cornwall Apprenticeship campaign. My name is Bethany Allen, I am the Skills Hub Manager. And we've just put a very short session together for you today, just to look at apprenticeships and separating maybe the fact from the fiction, as per the title. So we'll probably dive straight in if that's okay with everybody. If you have got any questions, please do submit them. I think there's a chat function, but at the end of the presentation, we've left about 10 minutes spare so that you can ask any questions or if you have any queries about apprenticeships, you can ask Cathie and I while we're here. So, firstly, I'm from the Skills Hub, and what does that mean? So we are an independent and impartial skills coordination service for employers. So basically, we're here as a team to help businesses work smarter and thrive with skills embedded in their culture. We often hear that Cornwall is slightly lagging in productivity percentages against national and European averages. And often we hear skills being the blame for that. So we're here just trying to ensure that people are thinking about workforce development options and considering how they're going to take their staff forward with their business. So I'll let Cathie cover the apprenticeship campaign.
Lovely, thanks Bethany. So the Cornwall Apprenticeships campaign was set up in Cornwall as a free resource for employers and individuals to find out more about apprenticeships. So it's a bit of a one-stop shop for everything apprenticeship wise. It can help employers get started with apprenticeships to boost their workforce skills and attract new talent, but also we can promote local vacancy information to individuals as well who may be looking for an apprenticeship. And importantly, it's all about giving sort of free, impartial advice, information on all things apprenticeship. It's been funded by the European Social Programme until March 2023, and it's a partnership essentially between Cornwall Council, the Cornwall Isles of Scilly Local Enterprise Partnership, and of course the Skills Hub. And it was commenced back in 2016 originally, just to help promote the benefits of apprenticeships and provide that free and impartial information.
Brilliant.
So we're going to look at now what is an apprenticeship. So let's actually get started with the definition first. So in the UK, the term apprenticeship is defined and actually protected in government policy. But in basic terms, an apprenticeship means that it's a paid job with on and off the job learning and experience. And actually they're not just reserved for school leavers, they're actually open to anybody of any age, as long as they're over the age of 16, and they can help individuals to progress their skills and careers, but also importantly, they can help employers to recruit and skill up the workforce of the future.
Brilliant, thank you. So I think firstly, let's dispel some of the myths that we often hear. So Cathie and I are employer facing, and we often hear people coming into apprenticeships with assumptions about what it might mean. And so we just wanted to make sure that we were really clear about dispelling some of those incorrect facts that are out there. So what are the common things we hear? Apprenticeships are only for school leavers. So this isn't true at all. Yes, young people can go on to do an apprenticeship, but actually an apprenticeship can be done at any age. So 16 plus, so as soon as they're out of school, anybody can do an apprenticeship, and there's no upper age limit on these either. So it can be somebody at any point in their career can go on to do an apprenticeship. So we often hear as well that an employer says, oh, I'd really like so-and-so to do an apprenticeship, but they can't do it because they already work for us. And that's not true either. So it's really important to remember that anybody can go onto an apprenticeship as long as they're going into a new job role. So if it's somebody within your business who would like to maybe progress or learn a new skills path within the business, they can do an apprenticeship as well as somebody who's new coming into your company. We often hear that apprentices, oh, I don't have time to have an apprentice. They take a lot of work, they need a lot of resource. And actually what we've seen is that apprenticeships can boost productivity within a company by £214 per week. So actually, yes, you need to invest in them, but it's not a drain on resources. And actually what we're seeing is that businesses are really benefiting from apprenticeships. Apprenticeships also cover every sector. So I think traditionally people think of apprenticeships in very vocational areas such as construction or health and beauty or all different types of ones. But actually there's new innovative standards coming through just consistently at the moment. So things like digital marketing or management and degree level as well. So there's all different apprenticeships out there for any job role. So don't think that if you've got a certain role, and don't think to yourself, oh, I don't think there'll be an apprenticeship for that, because actually the chances are there probably are. Some people say, oh, apprenticeships are kind of a secondary route to mainstream education, and maybe have a perception about their value. And actually, that's completely not the case at all. Now, apprenticeships are really highly valued. They've been reformed by the government, so they are bespoke to company needs, and they give individuals everything they need to show competency in a job role. And actually what we're seeing is employers really value apprenticeship qualifications because it shows that somebody's got workplace experience as well as the theoretical knowledge. So apprenticeships also can go from level 2, which is GCSE equivalent, all the way up to degree level apprenticeships as well. So it's not the case that you can only do lower levels of apprenticeships. There's vast options available to you. I often hear as well that apprentices train up an apprentice and then they'll probably leave the company. Actually, we've seen data that shows that the majority of apprentices who've done their training with a company stay on with the company if they're given an opportunity to do so. So I think it was something like 90% of apprentices stay in employment in that job area. 71% of apprentices stay with that employer that they did their training with. So if you've got an opportunity there for post-apprenticeship role, somebody to stay on and continue developing within your business, 100%, I think it's worth considering. Sometimes we hear about people having kind of prior qualifications or training that they've done before and thinking that that might be a barrier to them taking on an apprenticeship or taking on an apprentice. And this isn't the case either. So if you have somebody who's a degree graduate, please don't think they can't do an apprenticeship. They can't do an apprenticeship, obviously, in the area they've done their degree in, because they would be retraining in the same area. But if somebody's doing something completely different, that's absolutely fine. So, for example, if you've got somebody with, an English degree or an ancient history degree or a science degree, and they want to do something different within your organisation and they need the training to do so, that's absolutely fine. They can go on and do an apprenticeship. And then the final one, apprenticeships are expensive. That's not the case at all. And we're going to debunk that in much more detail later on. But there's lots of funding available. There's some incentives depending on eligibility. And really, they are a really cost-effective way to train staff at the moment. So we've just done the busting of the myths. So let's have a look very quickly at the challenges that we're seeing across kind of the landscape in Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly at the moment, and wider, to be honest with you. So we are seeing at the moment unprecedented levels of workforce shortages. Here are some of the headlines which we have seen, and I'm sure you've seen quite a lot of these yourself in the last kind of year or so. There's been a number of factors which have affected the labour market, including but kind of not limited to Brexit, the pandemic, pingdemic. There's so many different factors going on at the moment, and I think I heard somebody call it the Great Resignation the other day as well. So there's lots of things going on, very transient workforce at the moment. So therefore it's even more important now to think about the future of your business and make sure you're best placed to manage any potential challenges which you may face. So considering where your workforce stands at the moment, what the skills are that you have within your company and your workforce, and thinking about, okay, what do we need and how might we maybe find a non-traditional route to get that. So apprenticeships are a great option for this, because as I said earlier, you can train someone within the business who maybe has the enthusiasm or passion for something but not necessarily the skills background and knowledge, and they may not have a qualification in it. So considering an apprenticeship is a really, really good option at the moment.
Okay, so thank you for that, Bethany. So now Bethany's actually covered around the myths surrounding apprenticeships and some of the challenges that businesses are facing. Let's take a look at the benefits of utilising apprenticeships in the workplace. So cost effective, so that's one of the first benefits that we often see with apprenticeships. Up to 100% of funding actually is available for the training for apprenticeships, but at the most smaller employers will only pay 5% of the cost of the training. So it can be a very cost-effective way to training your staff. Apprentices set a good example within the business. Yes, I mean, it's great. I mean, apprentices coming in, they're dedicated, they're learning on the job from mentors within the workplace, and they can actually inspire other people within the workforce as well to learn and be good within their roles, boosting morale and around motivation. Again, by bringing an apprentice in, somebody who's keen and eager can really add to the morale within the workforce in an organisation. The ability to diversify and attract new people. Apprenticeships can actually be a really good way of adding to your recruitment pipeline within an organisation where you might be struggling to recruit into certain roles, or you just actually want to find different individuals to fit within your business. The long-term investment sort of breeds loyalty. Well, I think Bethany mentioned it earlier, really. Those employers that are investing in apprenticeships and bringing in apprentices into the business, there are clear benefits, and a lot of research has been done around this. And as we heard earlier, sort of around 90% of apprentices do stay in employment with their employer once they've completed their apprenticeship. Increased productivity. Again, the National Apprenticeship Service has done some research around this, and it suggests that 78% of employers with apprentices have reported improved productivity within their business. Bringing new and fresh ideas. Apprentices quite often will go to college or attend other sort of learning and taught sessions, working, it might be with new machinery or new ways of working. And actually they can bring all that back into the workplace. And in some instances, we've heard that, apprentices have made cost savings, they've brought new ideas in, or they've actually taught individuals, sort of existing members of staff, new ways of doing things. And it is an effective way to grow talent. Apprenticeships just don't need to be for new staff. You can actually use apprenticeship training to develop existing emerging talent within your business. So think about the staff you've already got and how you might be able to use apprenticeships to train them as well. So we're going to have a look now at some additional facts around apprenticeships. With 95% of government funding in most cases, actually a degree apprenticeship could cost an employer less than £1,000. For example, I had a look earlier, foundation degree in civil engineering, a 5% contribution for an employer would equate to £600. That's a foundation degree in engineering at £600 for all of the training. That's just amazing in my eyes. Hiring an apprentice is the same as hiring any other employee, but it can be made all the easier with the support of your training provider, because actually most will provide a free recruitment service. And apprenticeships don't just have to be for new staff, as we were talking about a minute ago. If you have staff with knowledge or skills gaps, or you want to develop into new roles, then an apprenticeship can be ideal for them. We've even heard of business owners and managers doing them themselves. So why not think about one for yourself? And it's not one size all fits all, as the training can usually be tailored and to suit both the business and the individual needs.
Brilliant. So yeah, fabulous. Thank you for that, Cathie. So keep calm and go back to basics. So we've debunked the myths, we've talked about where we are now, and we've given you a few kind of factoids to get you started. But what are the basics? I think so often people say to us, where do we even start? So we thought we'd put together a little bit of information just to explain. So there's no upper age limit, and the minimum age is 16. So we mentioned that earlier. So anybody is able to do an apprenticeship. They can work in any sector or industry. So apprenticeships will have a minimum duration. So the absolute minimum duration there is would be a really fun number of 372 days, which is just over a year. But that's the absolute minimum. But normally we see kind of a level 2, level 3, maybe being just over a year to maybe 2 years, 18 months, 2 years. And then the higher levels usually can be anything up to kind of 4 years as a kind of standard average. So in the apprenticeship guidance, it says apprentices need to work a minimum of 30 hours per week. Okay, so that's the kind of basic standard. However, there are exceptions in place. So if you think for any reason that you can't sustain an apprenticeship for 30 hours per week, still get in touch and speak to kind of us or a training provider and look at the option there. But that's the kind of standard procedure. If you're employing an apprentice, you must pay the National Apprenticeship wage, which is on the .gov site. But many employers actually choose to pay a bit more than the standard apprenticeship wage. I think we all know now the cost of living is going up. And actually what we've seen is that employers who offer a little bit more, maybe national minimum kind of living wage, that kind of thing, they tend to get more applicants through. So it's worth considering kind of the wage that you would be looking to advertise at. 20% of an apprentice's time must be spent on off-the-job training. And everyone goes, what on earth does that mean? So off-the-job training is the time where the apprentice is doing any learning or any tasks to do with their apprenticeship. So basically, anytime they do something for the first time, so say they're learning a task, they're shadowing somebody, they might be going to a training provider or a college and doing classes. They could be doing workshop training. They might be having an assessment by their assessor or tutor. So all of that kind of time equates to something called off-the-job training. And this has been embedded within the rules of an apprenticeship to ensure that the apprentice is given enough time to do their learning on the job, and that therefore they're not doing it in their own time. So you need to make sure that within their employment hours, 20% of their time, you give them time to do their learning that they need to do. Apprenticeship standards have a maximum funding value, but actually the price is negotiable. And this is a key thing for employers to be aware of. So the values will change depending on the subject area, the sector, the level. However, everything has a maximum price. But if your apprentice comes to you and they've already got knowledge in a certain area or some experience, then you can actually negotiate that price down because they'll require less training. And then also small employers benefit from government funding towards the cost of training, which Cathie mentioned earlier, and we're going to go into a bit more detail on later. But if you're a small employer, which is kind of less than 250 employees and a few other kind of eligibility requirements, then you'll normally get either 95% or 100% of your training covered by the government, which means that, as Cathie said earlier, it's a really cost-effective way to get somebody trained up. So an apprenticeship has a couple of key stages in the journey. I've just put this up here. We can send the slides to anybody who's interested. But the main kind of thing to remember is practical period. That's the main part of the apprenticeship, which everybody thinks about, the training bit. Gateway, that's once they're all trained up and they're ready to take their final tests or exams or assessment, and you're kind of preparing for that. And then we've got something called endpoint assessment, which is often abbreviated to EPA. And that's where they actually undertake their assessment. It could be an exam, it could be coursework, it could be a conversation with a sector professional who asks them questions to check competency.
Okay, thanks, Bethany. So now we're going to look at whether you're a levy or non-levy employer. Most employers actually will be a non-levy employer where they will get the sort of co-investment funding from the government. But essentially, a levy paying employer will have an annual pay bill of over £3 million a year. And what that means then is those larger businesses will use their annual levy pot to pay for all of their apprenticeship training. But if you're a smaller business with a lower pay bill than that, you only pay sort of 5% maximum the cost of the training, which could actually be as little as £100. Or I gave the example earlier, the degree one, which would be £600. And actually the government will fund the rest of that training for you.
Brilliant, thank you. So just to make you aware, the government has an apprenticeship portal, which is where employers can access all the information to do with their apprenticeship journey. It's called the Apprenticeship Service, and it's got many kind of different web pages that sit on the front of it. So through this portal, you would be kind of given access by a training provider, and through there you'd be able to manage the apprenticeship funding, so you could see what the money was coming down and how that was being utilised. You can look and advertise vacancies for apprenticeships. Also, you can look at apprenticeship training providers and decide who might be right for you. You can choose endpoint assessment organisations as well, so you can choose who the body is that comes in and makes sure that your apprentice is competent at the end of the training. You can also give feedback on your apprenticeship experience, and also if you want support with it, you can give your training provider access so they can help you with any of the funding management, etc. So in general, as Cathie said earlier, if you've got a payroll of less than 3 million, you'll be a non-levy employer, and you can reserve your apprenticeship funding on here from the government, and then also receive transfer apprenticeship funds should you choose to have funding from a large employer. We won't touch on that so much today, but we can talk you through that if it's of interest. For those businesses that do have the payroll over 3 million, then through the system, they would be a levy employer, and they can kind of make sure their PAYE stuff's up to date, make sure your training provider information's up to date, and see how much money you've got left in your pot.
Lovely, thank you. So let's take a look and sort of cover off what financial sort of assistance and support is out there for you as employers. So there is a range of sort of grants and funding for employers. So we'll just cover it off really for you. So all employers could receive £1,000 incentive for recruiting an apprentice aged 16 to 18, or for those 19 to 24 with an EHCP. So that's basically an education healthcare plan. That's just to recognise the support that the employer might need to give somebody a little bit younger that might not have the experience somebody older would have working already within a business. That payment of £1,000 is paid in 2 stages, and you can see the sort of time frame there for that. If you're a non-levy sort of business, so a smaller business, where you're recruiting a 16 to 18-year-old, you do not have to pay that 5% contribution. So the government will fully fund the cost of the training, whatever level and whatever sort of apprenticeship standard you're looking for. And another added sort of bit of a bonus there is that employers won't have to pay employer contributions for apprentices under the age of 25, as long as they're below the higher tax rate, which I would think most apprentices in Cornwall will probably be. So Cornwall Apprenticeships, just to reflect, we've got the website, cornwallapprenticeships.com. Please do go on that today or another time to have a look at sort of the information and advice that's on there for you. It features a bit of an employer roadmap which takes you through the stages and process to going and getting an apprentice. We've got more of a comprehensive toolkit on there for you, which is sort of the A to Z of apprenticeships and the apprenticeship journey, as well as funding information and information around vacancies there. So I work closely with Bethany. Any inquiries that come through the Skills Hub will either be handled by myself or Bethany's team in the Skills Hub. The campaign is very much about raising awareness and benefits with employers who are new to apprenticeships, but also celebrating apprenticeships and looking at local case studies and other employers actually have found benefits with apprenticeships within their business.
Brilliant, thank you. So yes, that's brilliant. So thank you, Cathie. So following kind of the resource from the Cornwall Apprenticeship campaign, if you want to dig a bit deeper, and then obviously you can get in touch with Cathie via the website, and there is a box to contact on there. Or you can pop along to the Skills Hub. We've got a phone number and email, which I'll share at the end of this presentation. But we basically have a team of skills experts who are on hand to speak to your business and get to grips with kind of where you're at the moment, what's going on, what you need, and really have a think about the best ways to support you. So we do a skills review, and that can be done via the telephone, via kind of Teams or video conferencing, or also face-to-face if you prefer. So if you would like to chat through with the Skills Connector, you know, to see if apprenticeships might be right for you, or potentially what other training potentials there are as well, because there are other training schemes available, then we are on hand and very willing to kind of have a chat and see what might suit you. as well as the apprenticeship campaign and Skills Hub, there are other support avenues available. So there are apprenticeship training agencies, which act as kind of almost a recruitment function for employers. Training providers themselves, so this could be an independent training provider or colleges who offer apprenticeships. They're always willing to kind of have a discussion with you to see what courses are available and what might suit you. And also the .gov website. Obviously, the government website is a really key resource for everybody to use because it has kind of all the most up-to-date and relevant information there.
Okay, so around employer feedback, it's just really to reiterate that apprenticeship sometimes can be the best kept secret, and it can sometimes seem very difficult to know where to start with apprenticeships, but both myself and Bethany were here to support you. And that's just a summary on the screen of some of the research that's been done by the National Apprenticeship Service, which has come from employers themselves. So employers that really engage with apprenticeships really do value them and usually come back for more apprenticeships in the future, either for their own staff or for new recruits. And it can be a very good way to recruit new people into your business.
Brilliant, thank you. So just a couple of quick quotes before we go to Q&A. I'm aware we're running slightly behind. Cathie and I are good to stay on, so hopefully you've got a couple more minutes to stay with us. But yeah, so here you can see one of the companies we supported, JR Flat Roofing, talking about really the loyalty that they get from apprenticeships and the investment as well, you can see there. And then we've got one from St Austell Brewery as well. So really they were looking for recruitment solutions and wanted really motivated individuals to join the company. So yeah, so that's why they chose apprenticeships. So that is everything from us. So we will stop the presentation in 2 minutes. All of our details are here, and if you would like a copy of the slides, we can send those out to you. But what I'll do is I'll stop sharing the screen so that then if you've got any questions or there's anything in the chat, then you can ask away. There we go. So I think we might have something. Ah, cool. So we've got a couple of you there in the audience. I can see. Has anybody got any questions? Wants to hop on and ask anything at all? Or we stunned you into silence, maybe? All good. So yeah, so Cathie and I are always here, we're always on hand, and as I said, Skills Hub in general as well. We've got a fantastic team of people who are really knowledgeable about apprenticeships and how they can benefit your business, but also kind of if they're right for you as well.
Oh, we've got one question there, Bethany. I think.
Brilliant.
Do apprentices get a chance to join the company's pension scheme?
So as far as I'm aware, they're treated as any other employee. So yes, they would do. Is that correct, Cathie, in your opinion as well?
Yeah, I believe that is the case. So yeah, they are an employee in law as any other employee would be with an apprentice. So there should be no reason why they would join your pension scheme.
Yeah, I've employed apprentices in the past that have access pension schemes. So yeah, it is available to them.
Yeah, and also I suppose as well, it's quite a few employers will either take an apprentice on in terms of a permanent contract or a fixed term contract as well, and that's perfectly acceptable either way. Is more than possible.
Yeah.
I think the thing to note is there's support out there once you get started on the journey. There's plenty of support out there to help you as you go along, really.
Yeah, definitely. And training providers, they tend to put in place both kind of a contact who's the trainer for the apprentice, but also somebody who's almost like more of a mentor figure who does reviews and feedback and makes sure that everything's moving as it should be as well. So you kind of get that double support there as well as any external support along the way. It's probably worth noting just before we sign off as well, we are very lucky in Cornwall. We get a huge amount of European funding, and obviously the Skills Hub and the Apprenticeship campaign are funded through European funding. But at the moment that funding is around, and there are apprenticeship grants available for some businesses in certain sectors as well. So if you are looking at apprenticeships, do speak to the training providers as well and just say, is there any kind of additional training because of us being in Cornwall or as a Scilly that we could access? So it's always worth an ask, I think. So yeah, fabulous. Well, I think that covers all the questions. I can't see any more in the chat. So thank you everyone for joining us. I know we're a couple of minutes over, so thank you for bearing with us and joining us for the full duration. We really appreciate your time, and we, as I said, we are here if we can do anything to support you. So that's cornwallapprenticeships.com or CIOS skillshub.com as well, our websites. My name is Bethany Allen, I'm Skills Hub Manager, and I've had a fabulous time with my co-host Cathie Kessell from Cornwall Apprenticeships. So thank you, and we'll see you soon, I'm sure.
Thank you very much. Nice to see everybody. Okay.